The spear was already in motion. That is what the soldiers would remember. Alpha King Vorik of Valdros, the Blood Moon Conqueror, the man who had crushed 3 kingdoms in 5 years, had raised his spear to strike. The cursed cub cowered in the snow, bleeding from wounds it could not have survived alone. Its golden eyes were wide with terror. The execution was certain. Then the girl appeared. She came from nowhere, a slip of a thing, ragged clothes hanging off her thin frame, bare feet blue against the frozen ground. An Omega, the lowest rank. The kind of wolf no one noticed and no one mourned. She threw herself over the cub's body and looked up at the king. Not with fear, not with pleading, with defiance. "You will have to kill me first," she said. The soldiers forgot how to breathe, because no one spoke to the Alpha King like that. No one. Not generals, not princes, not the conquered lords who bent their knees to save their bloodlines, and certainly not a starving Omega child shielding a creature marked for death. The king's arm did not waver, his green eyes, cold as northern ice, fixed on the girl's face. She did not look away. Her small body trembled, but her arms stayed wrapped around the cub. Silence pressed down on the clearing like a hand over a mouth. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then Alpha King Vorik, the man who had never shown mercy, the man whose name made grown warriors weep, did something no one present would ever forget. He lowered his spear. It fell into the snow without a sound. The soldiers stared. The girl stared. Even the dying cub lifted its head. And the king, without a word, turned and walked away. So now everyone is wondering the same thing. Why would the most ruthless alpha in living memory spare 1 worthless Omega and 1 cursed cub? Mavis had learned to count her breaths when she was hungry. It helped. Breath in, breath out. Each one was proof she was still alive. Each one was a small victory against a world that seemed determined to take everything from her. She had been counting for 3 days now. The village was gone. Burned to ash and memory 6 months ago when the Valdros army swept through Grey Mist Valley like a winter storm. Mavis had watched from the crawl space beneath the floorboards where her mother had hidden her. She had watched her mother's feet disappear. She had heard her mother's voice, calm and steady, telling the soldiers there was no one else in the house. She had heard the silence that followed. Mavis did not cry anymore. Crying took energy she did not have. She pressed her back against the hollow of the dead oak tree and pulled her knees to her chest. The forest was quiet tonight. Too quiet. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Mavis closed her eyes and tried to remember warmth. Her mother's arms. The fire in their small cottage. Bread fresh from the oven. Her stomach twisted violently. She pressed her fist against her mouth and breathed through it. In, out, in, out. A sound broke the silence. Small, pained, close. Mavis's eyes snapped open. She did not move at first. Sounds in the forest meant danger. Sounds meant soldiers or rogues or worse. But this sound was different. This sound was a whimper. She crept forward on bare feet, moving between the trees like a shadow. Her eyes, 1 gray and 1 brown, scanned the darkness ahead. The snow bit at her skin, but she had stopped feeling cold days ago. That was either a good sign or a very bad one. She could not remember which. The whimpering grew louder. Mavis pushed through a tangle of frozen brambles and stopped. A cub lay in a small clearing. Tiny, golden-furred. Its side was torn open, dark blood staining the white snow around it. Its breaths came in short, shallow gasps. Its eyes, when they found hers, were filled with pain and resignation. This cub had given up. Mavis's chest ached. She knew that look. She had seen it in her own reflection the night her mother died. "No," she whispered. She did not know she was going to speak until the word was already out. "No, you do not get to give up." She crossed the clearing and dropped to her knees beside the cub. It flinched, tried to pull away, but it was too weak. Mavis pulled off her thin shawl, the only thing standing between her and the cold, and pressed it against the wound. "Hold on," she said. "Just hold on." The cub's golden eyes watched her. It did not understand her words, but something in her voice must have reached it. The resignation flickered. Just slightly. Mavis worked through the night. She packed the wound with moss and snow to stop the bleeding. She tore strips from her own dress to bind it. She curled her body around the cub to keep it warm, giving it heat she could not afford to lose. By morning, the cub was still breathing. Mavis smiled. It was a small smile, cracked and tired, but real. "See?" she whispered. "We do not give up." The cub made a soft sound and pressed its nose against her hand. For the first time in 6 months, Mavis did not feel completely alone. She named him Larkin, after the small birds her mother used to point out in the garden. Larkin survived winters that killed bigger birds, her mother had said. They survived because they never stopped trying. 3 days passed. Mavis scavenged what she could. Roots, frozen berries, bark she could chew into something close to edible. She gave Larkin the best of everything. He was healing slowly, his golden fur beginning to regain its shine, his movements growing stronger. On the 4th morning, the horns sounded. Mavis grabbed Larkin and pressed herself against the hollow oak. Through the gaps in the bark, she watched them come. Soldiers on massive war horses, wolves padding alongside, bigger than any she had ever seen. And at the front, riding a beast that seemed carved from shadow itself, a man whose presence made the forest go silent. Alpha King Vorik. She knew him by the stories, the Blood Moon Conqueror, the man who had ended the war by ending everyone who opposed him, the man whose army had burned her village and taken her mother. He was hunting something. Mavis looked down at Larkin. Golden fur, golden eyes. "The cursed bloodline," a soldier was saying, his voice carrying through the frozen air. "The cub was spotted in this area 3 days ago. It cannot have gone far." Mavis's blood turned to ice. They were hunting Larkin. The king raised his hand. The hunting party stopped. His head turned, slowly, scanning the tree line. His eyes found the hollow oak. Mavis did not breathe. "Run," her mind screamed. "Run now." But Larkin was too weak. She could not carry him fast enough. They would be caught in seconds. So Mavis did the only thing she could. She stepped out of the hollow, Larkin clutched against her chest, and faced the Alpha King. "You cannot have him," she said. The king dismounted. He walked toward her, each step measured, deliberate, until he stood close enough that she could see the scars crossing his face, the winter in his eyes, the spear in his hand. He raised it, and Mavis, without a single thought for herself, threw her body over Larkin's. Princess Sorsha of Sireth had perfected the art of stillness. Spine straight, chin lifted, hands folded, face empty. No one watching would guess that beneath her carefully constructed mask, she was imagining Alpha King Vorik's fortress collapsing into rubble with him trapped beneath it. It was a pleasant thought. She allowed herself to enjoy it. The courtyard of Black Spire Keep was filled with nobles and soldiers, all assembled to witness the king's return from his hunt. Sorsha stood among them in a gown the color of deep wine, her silver hair braided in the style of her fallen kingdom. A conquered princess, a political prize, a future Luna chosen not for love, but for the message her submission would send to the remaining southern territories. She hated every stone of this fortress. She hated every face that turned away from her suffering. And she hated, with a cold and patient fury, the man she was expected to marry. 3 months ago, the war had ended. Sireth had fallen. Her father had signed the treaty with shaking hands, trading his daughter's future for his people's survival. Sorsha had stood beside him, silent, as the terms were read. She would become Alpha King Vorik's Luna. She would bear his heirs. She would smile and bow and pretend she did not remember the names of every city his armies had burned. The drums grew louder. The gates began to open. Sorsha's fingers tightened behind her back. What emerged from the gates was not what she expected. The king walked. Not rode. Walked. His massive war horse followed behind him, riderless. His wolves flanked him in perfect formation, and in his arms, wrapped in his own heavy fur cloak, was a child. No, not a child. An Omega girl, thin as a winter branch, unconscious against his chest, and tucked into the crook of her arm, barely visible beneath the cloak, was a cub with golden fur. The courtyard went silent. Sorsha felt her mask slip before she caught it. She had spent 3 months in this fortress. She had studied the Alpha King with the careful attention of a prisoner mapping her cell. She knew his routines, his expressions, and his complete and utter lack of softness. This man did not carry people. This man did not wrap unconscious Omega girls in his own cloak. This man certainly did not bring cursed cubs into his own fortress when his entire hunting party had been sent to eliminate them. Yet here he was. A noblewoman beside Sorsha leaned close. "Is that the cursed cub?" she whispered. "The last of the Aurelian bloodline? Why would he bring it here?" Sorsha did not answer. She was watching the king's face. It was the same as always. Hard, cold, unreadable. But something in the way he held the girl was different. Careful, almost gentle. As if she were something fragile he had not expected to find. The crowd parted as he climbed the steps to the raised platform. He did not look at the nobles. He did not acknowledge the whispers. His eyes swept the courtyard once, cataloging, assessing, and then landed on Sorsha. For a heartbeat, their gazes locked. She met his stare with all the ice she could summon. She would not flinch. She would not bow. She was a princess of Cyreth, and she would die before she let him see her break. A flicker passed through his gaze. Not anger, not threat. Disappointment. It vanished before she could be certain she had seen it. "Prepare the East Wing chambers," the king said. His voice carried across the courtyard. "The girl and the cub are under my protection." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Under his protection. The same words used for wards of the crown, for political hostages, for people whose safety was guaranteed by the king's own honor. The matriarch stepped forward. Sorsha had learned to watch the king's mother the way prey animals watched circling hawks. Lady Sylvain was tall and sharp-featured, with silver hair swept back from a face that had never learned to smile. She ruled the domestic affairs of Blackspire Keep with an iron hand, and nothing happened within these walls without her knowledge. "My son." Her voice was smooth and cold. "The cub is marked for execution. The bloodline is cursed. Surely you do not intend to—" "I intend," the king interrupted, "exactly what I said." The matriarch's eyes narrowed. For just a moment, something ugly passed across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by the same serene control. "Of course, Your Majesty." She inclined her head. "I will see to the arrangements." She turned and swept away, but Sorsha caught the look she gave the unconscious girl in the king's arms. It was not confusion. It was not curiosity. It was calculation. Sorsha filed it away and turned her attention back to the king. He was already moving, carrying the girl toward the east wing. The cub's golden eyes were open now, watching everything with wary intelligence. As they passed, its gaze found Sorsha. She felt a strange shiver move through her. Those eyes were ancient, far too old for a creature so small. The crowd began to disperse, nobles and soldiers breaking into small groups, their whispers creating a low buzz of speculation. Sorsha remained where she was. What had she just witnessed? The Alpha King, the Blood Moon Conqueror, the man who had crushed her kingdom without mercy, had just defied his own mother, spared a cursed cub, and placed a starving Omega girl under his personal protection. None of it made sense. Sorsha thought about the look on the matriarch's face, the calculation, the cold assessment. She thought about the Omega girl, thin and fragile, completely unaware that she had just become the center of something much larger than herself. And she thought about the king, carrying both of them into his fortress like they were treasures he had not expected to find. Something was happening in Blackspire Keep, something that had disrupted the careful order the matriarch had built. Sorsha did not trust it. She did not trust any of it. But for the first time since she had arrived in this frozen prison, she felt something other than cold fury. She felt curious. Mavis woke to warmth. For a long moment, she did not move. Warmth was so unfamiliar now that she thought she might be dreaming, or dead. Perhaps this was what death felt like. Soft blankets, a fire crackling somewhere nearby, the absence of cold. Then Larkin's wet nose pressed against her cheek, and she knew she was alive. Her eyes flew open. She was lying in a bed. An actual bed, with pillows and sheets and a canopy overhead painted with silver moons. The room around her was larger than her entire cottage had been. Tapestries hung on stone walls. A fire burned in a hearth big enough to stand in. Larkin sat beside her, his golden eyes bright with worry. His wound had been properly bandaged now, clean white cloth wrapped around his small body. "We are inside," Mavis whispered. "We are inside the fortress." The memories returned in fragments. The king raising his spear, her body covering Larkin's, the cold certainty that she was about to die. Then nothing. She sat up slowly, her head spinning. Someone had dressed her in clean clothes. Someone had washed the dirt from her skin. Someone had cared for Larkin's wounds with skill she did not possess. The door opened. Mavis grabbed Larkin and pulled him behind her, her pulse spiking. A woman entered. Not the terrifying, silver-haired woman Mavis had glimpsed in her fever dreams. This woman was younger, with dark skin and kind eyes and a tray balanced in her hands. "You are awake," the woman smiled. "Good. I am Bethwyn. I serve in the East Wing." Mavis did not relax. "Where am I?" "Blackspire Keep, the king's fortress." Bethwyn set the tray on a small table. Steam rose from a bowl of broth. Bread, still warm, cheese. More food than Mavis had seen in months. "You have been asleep for 2 days. Your body needed rest." 2 days. Mavis's stomach cramped at the sight of the food, but she did not reach for it. "Why?" she asked. Bethwyn tilted her head. "Why what, child? Why am I here? Why am I alive?" Mavis's voice cracked. The king was hunting Larkin. He was going to kill him. Kill us both. Bethwyn's expression softened. "The king brought you here himself. He carried you through the gates and ordered the healers to tend to you. Both of you." She glanced at Larkin. "Whatever happened in that forest, child, you are under his protection now." Mavis did not understand. None of this made sense. "Eat," Bethwyn said gently. "You will need your strength. The king has requested to see you this afternoon." She left before Mavis could ask more questions. Mavis stared at the food. Her stomach screamed at her to eat, but her hands would not move. It could be poisoned. It could be a trick. Nothing in her life had prepared her to trust kindness. Larkin made a soft sound and nudged her arm. She looked at him. His golden eyes held no fear, only trust. "You think it is safe?" she whispered. He pressed his nose against her hand. Mavis reached for the bread. The afternoon came too quickly. A guard escorted her through corridors that seemed designed to make her feel small. Everything in Blackspire Keep was massive. The ceilings soared overhead. The windows stretched floor to ceiling. The people she passed looked through her like she was not there. Omega. The word followed her like a shadow. She could feel them thinking it. Worthless, disposable, nothing. Larkin walked beside her, his small body pressed against her leg. She had refused to leave him behind. The guard stopped before a set of iron doors. "The training yard," he said. "The king is expecting you." The doors swung open. Mavis stepped into chaos. The yard was filled with young wolves in human form, dozens of them, running drills under the sharp commands of instructors. Wooden swords clashed. Bodies hit the dirt. Shouts echoed off the stone walls. And in the center of it all stood the Alpha King. He was sparring with a boy twice Mavis's size. The boy lunged. The king sidestepped, caught his arm, and flipped him onto his back in a single fluid motion. The boy hit the ground hard enough to drive the air from his lungs. "Again," the king said. The boy staggered up and attacked. The king put him down again, and again, and again. Each time, his movements were precise, controlled, and almost lazy. He was not even trying. Then his eyes found Mavis. The sparring stopped. The king walked toward her, and the yard went quiet. Every young wolf turned to stare. Mavis felt their gazes like weights pressing down on her shoulders. The king stopped in front of her. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Taller than she remembered. Broader. His green eyes held no warmth. "You are recovered," he said. It was not a question. "Yes." Mavis's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Good." His gaze dropped to Larkin. "The cub as well?" "His name is Larkin." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. She heard gasps from the watching wolves. No one corrected the Alpha King. No one spoke to him without being spoken to first. But the king's expression did not change. "Larkin," he repeated. "You named him." "Yes." "Why?" "Because he was dying and no one cared. Because I could not let him give up. Because we are the same, him and me, the ones the world throws away." But she did not say any of that. She said, "Because everyone deserves a name." A flicker passed through his gaze, too fast to identify. Then it was gone. "Walk with me," he said, and turned without waiting for a response. Mavis followed. She did not know what else to do. They walked in silence through the training yard, past the staring young wolves, through a gate into a smaller courtyard beyond. This one was empty. Quiet. Snow lay untouched on stone benches. The king stopped and turned to face her. "You shielded him with your body," he said. "You knew I would kill you. Yet you did not move." Mavis lifted her chin. "He is innocent. He is cursed. He is a child." The king studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You are either very brave or very foolish." "Perhaps both," Mavis said. And the Alpha King, the Blood Moon Conqueror, the terror of 3 kingdoms, did something that stopped her heart. He smiled. It was small. Barely a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Gone before she could be certain it had been there at all. "Perhaps," he agreed. Sorsha had requested this meeting 4 days ago. She had prepared her arguments with the same care she had once prepared battle strategies for her father's generals. Every word chosen. Every counter-argument anticipated. Every weakness in her position reinforced with logic and precedent. She would not beg. She would not plead. She would negotiate as one ruler to another, even if the treaty had stripped her of everything but her title. The door to the king's study opened. "Princess." The guard gestured her inside. Sorsha entered with her spine straight and her heart carefully locked away. The study was smaller than she expected. Maps covered one wall, weapons hung on another. A fire burned low in the hearth, casting shadows across shelves crowded with books and scrolls. It smelled of ink, leather, and something else. "Wolf." Vorik stood at the window, his back to her. He did not turn when she entered. The silence stretched. Sorsha refused to break it first. Finally, he spoke. "You wish to discuss the marriage contract." "I wish to discuss my people." Sorsha kept her voice level. "The treaty guarantees their safety, but safety is a vague term. I require specifics." He turned then. Those green eyes found hers, and she felt the impact of his attention like a physical force. "Specifics," he repeated. "The Temple of Ithra in Sereth. It is sacred to my people. The treaty does not explicitly protect it. You want protection for a temple. I want assurance that your soldiers will not burn it to the ground as they burned everything else." The words came out sharper than she intended. She saw his jaw tighten, a muscle ticking beneath the scar that crossed his face. "The temple will be protected," he said. Sorsha blinked. She had expected resistance, arguments, demands for something in return. Just like that? Just like that. Why? "Because you asked." She stared at him. "You do not give things freely. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows many things about me. He moved to a chair by the fire and sat, gesturing for her to do the same. Most of them are wrong. Sorsha did not sit. I am not here to play games, Your Majesty. Neither am I. His gaze held hers. Sit, Princess. I do not bite unless provoked. Against her better judgment, she sat. The fire crackled between them. She was acutely aware of how close they were. She could see the details she had tried to ignore in the courtyard. The exhaustion around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands, scarred and capable of terrible violence, rested carefully on his knees. You hate me, he said. It was not a question, but Sorsha answered anyway. Yes. Good. He leaned back. Honesty is rare in this fortress. I find I prefer it. You prefer being hated? I prefer knowing where I stand. His eyes did not leave hers. You do not pretend. You do not simper or flatter. You look at me like you are imagining my death. I am. I know. And there it was again. That ghost of a smile. It is refreshing. Sorsha did not know what to do with this. The ruthless conqueror was supposed to be cruel, cold, and predictable. He was not supposed to sit across from her and speak of honesty like it mattered. The girl, she said, shifting the conversation to safer ground. The Omega with the cub. Why did you spare them? His expression shifted, a shadow passing over still water. She reminded me of something. Of what? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. Of what courage looks like when it has nothing left to lose. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. She threw herself over that cub knowing you would kill her, Sorsha said slowly. And you stopped? Yes. Why? He looked at the fire. The light carved deep shadows across his face. I have killed many people, Princess. Warriors, soldiers, those who chose to stand against me. I have never pretended otherwise. He paused. But I have never killed a child for protecting something she loved. The words settled between them. Sorsha thought about the stories she had heard. The Blood Moon Conqueror. The monster of the north. The man who showed no mercy. She thought about the way he had carried that Omega girl through the gates, wrapped in his own cloak. She thought about the way he was looking at the fire now, like a man carrying something heavy. The cub is cursed, she said carefully. The Aurelian bloodline. Your own soldiers were hunting it. My mother's orders. His jaw tightened. Not mine. And now? Now the cub is under my protection. He met her eyes. As is the girl. As are you, Princess, whatever you might think of me. Sorsha did not know what to say. You asked why I spared them, he continued. Perhaps I am tired of being the monster everyone expects. Perhaps I want to see if I am capable of something else. He paused. Or perhaps I simply could not kill a child who looked at me without fear and told me I would have to go through her first. Sorsha felt something shift in her chest, something she did not want to name. She must be very brave, she said quietly. She is. He looked at her. So are you, Princess. You walked into the fortress of your enemy and demanded things of me. That takes courage. Or foolishness. Perhaps both. The echo of his earlier words to the girl. Sorsha wondered if he realized it. She stood. I should go. He stood as well. The temple will be protected. You have my word. The word of the Blood Moon Conqueror. The word of Vorik. He held her gaze. There is a difference, Princess. I hope someday you will see it. She turned and walked to the door. Her hand was on the handle when his voice stopped her. Princess. She looked back. The Omega girl, he said. She will need someone to guide her in this fortress. Someone who understands what it is to be an outsider here. Sorsha raised an eyebrow. Are you asking me to befriend a child? I am asking you to consider it. His expression was unreadable. She has no one, and I suspect neither do you. The words landed harder than they should have. Sorsha left without responding. But she thought about them all the way back to her chambers. 1 month had passed. Mavis sometimes forgot she had ever been cold. The East Wing chambers were always warm. The food was always plentiful. Larkin grew stronger every day, his golden fur gleaming and his eyes bright with mischief. She should have been happy. Instead, she was waiting for it all to disappear. Good things did not last. That was the first lesson the world had taught her. Her mother had been good, and the world had taken her. The cottage had been warm, and the world had burned it. Every kindness was a trap waiting to close, but the trap never closed. The king summoned her 3 times a week to walk in the small courtyard. He asked her questions about Larkin, about her village, about the things she remembered from before the war. He listened to her answers with an attention that made her uncomfortable. No one had ever listened to her before. Princess Sorsha began appearing in unexpected places: the library, where Mavis was learning to read; the gardens, where Larkin liked to chase butterflies; the corridors, where Mavis wandered when she could not sleep. The princess never said much. She simply walked beside Mavis in silence, her presence steady and cool and somehow comforting. Today, Sorsha had brought her to watch the young wolves train. They stood on a balcony overlooking the yard. Below, Vorik was teaching a group of adolescents how to control their shifts. Larkin sat at Mavis's feet, his tail wagging as he watched. "He is different with them," Mavis said. Sorsha glanced at her. "What do you mean?" "In the forest, he was terrifying, like a storm about to break." Mavis watched the king correct a boy's stance with patient hands. "Here, he is almost gentle." "Do not mistake patience for gentleness," Sorsha said. "He is still the most dangerous man alive." "I know." Mavis tilted her head. "But dangerous and cruel are not the same thing." Sorsha was quiet for a moment. "No," she said finally. "They are not." Below, the training session ended. The king dismissed the young wolves and stood alone in the yard. His head lifted, and his eyes found the balcony. Found Mavis. Warmth bloomed in her chest. She waved before she could stop herself. The king did not wave back, but he inclined his head just slightly before turning away. "He likes you," Sorsha said. There was something strange in her voice. Almost wonder. "He is kind to me," Mavis corrected. "That is what I said." Sorsha turned from the balcony. "Come. Dinner will be served soon." Dinner in the small hall had become a ritual. The king sat at the head of the table. The matriarch sat to his right, her silver presence radiating cold disapproval. Sorsha sat across from the king, her face carefully neutral. And Mavis sat beside Sorsha, Larkin curled beneath her chair. The matriarch never looked at Mavis directly, but Mavis could feel her attention like frost creeping across glass. "The refugees from the southern villages have been settled," the king was saying. "The East Quarter has capacity for more." "Refugees require resources," the matriarch replied. Her voice was smooth as poisoned honey. "Resources that could be better spent elsewhere. They will work. They will contribute. They will breed weakness." The matriarch's eyes flickered toward Mavis, as will other charitable decisions. Mavis kept her gaze on her plate. Her appetite had vanished. "Mother." The king's voice carried a warning. "Enough." The matriarch smiled. "Of course, my son. I only wish to advise." The meal continued in strained silence. Mavis barely tasted the food. She watched the king from the corner of her eye. His jaw was tight. His shoulders carried a tension that seemed to grow heavier with every passing minute. Sorsha noticed too. Her eyes kept moving between the king and the matriarch, cataloging, assessing. The wine was poured. The king drank deeply. "The young wolves show promise," Mavis offered, trying to ease the tension. "I watched the training today. They are improving." The king looked at her. Some of the tightness left his face. "You think so?" "Yes. Especially the tall one with the red hair. His footwork is very good." "Brennick." The king nodded. "He works hard." "Hard work matters," Mavis said. My mother always said that talent is common, but dedication is rare. Something moved across the king's expression. Pain, quickly suppressed. Your mother sounds wise. She was. The silence that followed was different, softer. Then the king's hand slammed against the table. Everyone froze. His face had gone pale. His breathing came in sharp, shallow pulls. His fingers gripped the edge of the table so hard the wood groaned. Your Majesty? Sorsha rose from her chair. What is... Leave. The word came through gritted teeth. Both of you, now. What is wrong? Mavis started toward him. Mavis, do not... Sorsha reached for her arm, but Mavis had already seen his eyes. They were wrong. Darker than they should be. The green swallowed by something feral, something fighting to break free. Go, he managed. His voice was barely human. I cannot control. His body bent forward. Bones cracked. The sound was wrong, wet and violent. The matriarch rose calmly from her seat and walked toward the door. She did not look back. The transformation took him. It was not the smooth shift Mavis had seen from other wolves. This was brutal, forced, his body fighting itself as it tore between forms. The massive black wolf crashed onto the floor, knocking the table sideways. Plates shattered. Wine spread across the stone like blood. Sorsha grabbed Mavis and pulled her toward the door. But Larkin had already moved. The small golden cub walked toward the snarling wolf without hesitation. His ears were flat against his head, but his steps did not falter. Larkin, no! Mavis tore free from Sorsha and ran after him, the wolf's wild eyes fixed on her. She froze. Everything in her body screamed to run. The wolf's jaws could snap her in half. His claws could tear her apart. He was not the king right now. He was something else. Something broken and desperate and dangerous. But Larkin pressed his small body against the wolf's trembling foreleg, and Mavis knelt beside them both. It is all right, she said softly. Her voice shook, but she did not stop. You are not alone. We are here. The wolf's snarl faded. His breathing slowed. His great body lowered itself to the floor, shaking. Mavis placed her hand against his muzzle. We are here, she repeated. The wildness in his eyes dimmed, and then went still. Behind her, Sorsha stood motionless in the doorway, and the matriarch, watching from the shadows of the corridor, smiled. The room was quiet now. Mavis had fallen asleep, curled against the wolf's warm flank, one hand resting on Larkin's golden fur. The cub slept too, his small body rising and falling with peaceful breaths, and the wolf, the massive black wolf that had torn through the dining hall like a creature possessed, lay still beneath them both. Sorsha stood alone with her thoughts. She crossed to the overturned table and crouched beside the spilled wine, lifted the goblet to her nose, breathed in carefully. Red, spiced. Something underneath. Something that did not belong. She could not name it. She was no alchemist, but she had grown up in a court full of poison and treachery, and she knew the scent of wrongness when she encountered it. She moved to the food, smelled each dish in turn. Nothing obvious. Nothing she could prove. But she remembered the matriarch's calm exit. The way she had walked toward the door before the transformation even began. The smile in the corridor shadows. Sorsha went to the door and spoke quietly to the guard outside. Send for Bethwyn. Immediately. No one else. Bethwyn arrived within minutes, her dark eyes sharp with worry. Sorsha pulled her close. Collect samples from everything on this table. Every dish, every goblet, every crumb. Take them to the castle alchemist tonight. Tell him to test for anything that should not be there. And the results? Come to me. Only to me. Sorsha held her gaze. No one else can know. Not yet. Bethwyn nodded and moved to the table without another word. Sorsha turned back to the sleeping figures by the fire. The wolf had shifted. She had looked away when it happened, preserving what dignity she could. But now the man lay in its place, unconscious, firelight moving across a bare skin and old scars. She found his cloak near the door, walked back, knelt beside him and began to drape it across his body, keeping her eyes fixed firmly on her own hands. She was doing well until she breathed in. His scent surrounded her. Pine, smoke, something wild and distinctly wolf. Her own wolf nature stirred in response, recognition and warning and something else entirely. She made the mistake of glancing at his face. His eyes were open, green and heavy-lidded and very close to hers. He looked at her without walls, without armor, like a man surfacing from deep water who had found something unexpected waiting for him. "Sorsha, aim," he said softly. Her breath caught. Then awareness returned to his eyes. The warmth retreated. He sat up sharply, the cloak falling, his gaze sweeping the ruined room. "Mavis, where is—" "Safe." Sorsha nodded toward the corner. "Sleeping. Both of them." He found the small figures curled together and exhaled like a man releasing something he had been holding too tightly. "I apologize," he said finally. "I did not mean to—" "What happened?" Sorsha interrupted. Shame crossed his face, the last thing she had expected from the Blood Moon Conqueror. "It happens sometimes," he said, looking away. "Bursts I cannot control. Since I was a child." "Since you were a child," Sorsha repeated slowly. "My mother says it is a flaw in my nature, a darkness that must be channeled." He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "War helps. Fighting helps. Gives the violent somewhere to go." Sorsha stared at him. She thought about the man she had watched for 3 months, his control in the training yard, his patience with the young wolves, his careful precision in everything he did. This was not a man who lost control. This was a man who had been told a lie about himself so many times, he had stopped questioning it. "The wars," she said carefully. "All of them. They were your way of managing this." "Yes." He would not meet her eyes. "And no, the violence needed an outlet, but the wars—" He paused. "They made me useful. They gave me purpose when I had none." "Purpose," Sorsha repeated. The word tasted bitter. "I know what you are thinking." His jaw tightened. "I see the names of your cities in your eyes, the faces of your people. I am not asking for forgiveness." "Good, because I am not offering it." The silence stretched between them. Then Sorsha said, "The girl calmed you." Vorik looked toward the corner where Mavis slept. "She walked right up to me, put her hand on my face, and everything just stopped." "She was not afraid of you." "She was terrified." A muscle twitched in his jaw. "But she came anyway. For me. For Larkin." He paused. "No one has ever done that before." Her chest tightened. "Who is she to you?" she asked quietly. "Really?" Vorik was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "My brother was killed 7 years ago, ambushed on the northern road. They never found his body." He paused. "He had a son, a golden-furred cub with eyes too old for his age. My mother told me the child died in the same attack." Sorsha went very still. "Larkin," she breathed. "I did not know." Vorik's voice cracked. "Not until I saw him in that clearing. Those eyes. That fur. Exactly like my brother's." He looked at his hands. "My mother ordered him hunted as a cursed bloodline. She told me the Aurelians were dangerous, that their blood carried madness. I believed her. And Mavis? I do not know why she was there. Why she found him. Why she was willing to die for a cub she had only known for days." He met Sorsha's eyes. "But she saved him. She saved my brother's son when I would have killed him." The weight of it pressed down on Sorsha's chest. "Your mother lied to you," she said slowly. "About the bloodline. About Larkin. About your brother's death." "Yes. Why?" "Because my brother was gentle." Vorik's voice went flat. He questioned her, challenged her, wanted peace instead of conquest. She called him weak. A pause. I think she had him killed. Sorsha closed her eyes. And the violence, she said. The episodes you cannot control. They started when you were a child. Yes. When your mother began managing your meals, your training, your entire life. Vorik went still. The understanding landed between them like a stone dropped into dark water. She has been drugging you, Sorsha said quietly, your entire life. To make you believe you were broken. To make you need the wars she wanted you to fight. Vorik did not speak, but she saw it in his face, the pieces falling into place, the foundation of everything he believed about himself crumbling. A small sound came from the corner. They both turned. Mavis sat upright, her strange eyes, one gray and one brown, wide and fixed on Vorik. Larkin is your nephew? She whispered. Vorik held her gaze. Yes. And the matriarch wanted him dead? Yes. Mavis looked down at the sleeping cub. Her hand tightened in his golden fur. She will not stop, Mavis said quietly. Will she? Vorik's expression hardened. No, she will not. Mavis lifted her chin. Then we will have to stop her first. Mavis did not sleep that night. She lay in her chambers with Larkin pressed against her side and stared at the painted ceiling. Silver moons on dark blue. Beautiful. Safe. Lies. Nothing in this fortress was safe. The matriarch moved through it like poison through water, invisible until the damage was done. She had killed Vorik's brother. She had tried to kill Larkin. She had spent decades drugging her own son to turn him into a weapon. And now she knew that Mavis knew. Mavis had seen the matriarch's face in the corridor shadows. The smile. The calculation. Whatever was coming, it would come soon. By morning, Mavis had made a decision. She would not wait to be hunted. She found Bethwyn in the kitchens and asked her to deliver a message to the king. Then she went to the library to wait. But the king did not come. The matriarch did. She appeared in the doorway like a winter ghost, silver hair gleaming, her face arranged in an expression of warm concern. There you are, child. Her voice was honey over ice. I have been looking for you. Mavis's heart slammed against her ribs. She pulled Larkin closer. The king asked to see me, she said carefully. I am waiting for him. The king is occupied. The matriarch moved into the room, closing the door behind her. Council business, very important. But I am here now. Every instinct Mavis possessed screamed at her to run, but the door was closed. The matriarch stood between her and the exit, and Larkin was still too small to fight. I know you are frightened, the matriarch said gently. After what happened last night, the king's episodes can be terrifying. Mavis said nothing, but I want you to know that I understand. The matriarch's eyes were soft, kind, wrong. You have been through so much, lost so much, and now you find yourself trapped in a fortress with a man who cannot control his own violence. He is not violent, Mavis said. You made him that way. The words came out before she could stop them. The matriarch's expression did not change, but something flickered behind her eyes, something cold and calculating. What an imagination you have, she said smoothly. The king's condition is an unfortunate defect of birth. Nothing more. You have been poisoning him. Silence. The matriarch studied her with new attention, like a hawk studying a mouse that had unexpectedly shown teeth. Clever child, she said finally, cleverer than I expected. She moved closer. But cleverness without power is merely inconvenient. You have no proof, no allies, no one who would believe a worthless Omega over the king's own mother. Princess Sorsha believes me. The conquered princess? The matriarch laughed softly. She has even less power than you do. The council tolerates her presence because the treaty demands it. Nothing more. Mavis's hands were shaking. She pressed them against Larkin's fur to hide it. The king believes me. Something dangerous moved through the matriarch's eyes. Does he? She tilted her head. And yet he is not here. You sent for him, did you not? Through that meddling servant girl, But he did not come. She smiled. Because I intercepted your message. Because in this fortress, nothing happens without my knowledge. Mavis's blood went cold. What do you want? She whispered. I want order. The matriarch's voice went hard. I want the kingdom I have spent decades building. I want my son to fulfill the destiny I designed for him. And I will not allow a stray Omega and a cursed cub to dismantle everything I have worked for. Larkin is not cursed. He is Vorik's nephew. He is evidence. The matriarch's mask slipped, revealing something ugly beneath. Evidence that my son's brother defied me. Evidence that I had him eliminated. Evidence that cannot be allowed to exist. She reached behind her and drew a blade. Mavis scrambled backward, pulling Larkin with her. You cannot kill me here, she said. Her voice shook. The servants will hear. The guards will. The servants have been dismissed. The guards have been reassigned. The matriarch advanced slowly. You are alone, child. Just as you were in that forest. Just as you have always been. Mavis's back hit the wall. There was nowhere left to run. She looked at Larkin. His golden eyes were wide with fear, but he pressed himself against her leg, refusing to leave her side. I am sorry, she whispered to him. I tried. The matriarch raised the blade, and Mavis, because she did not know what else to do, screamed. The scream tore through the fortress. Vorik heard it from the council chamber, his wolf senses catching what human ears would have missed. He was on his feet before the sound finished, knocking his chair backward, already running. The corridors blurred past, servants scattered from his path, guards shouted questions he did not answer. He followed the echo of that scream like a thread through a labyrinth, his wolf clawing at the inside of his skin, demanding to be released. The library doors were locked. He did not slow down. His shoulder hit the wood and the doors burst inward, wood splintering. He saw everything at once. His mother, blade raised. Mavis and Larkin pressed against the far wall. Terror on the child's face. The blade descended. Vorik moved. He crossed the room faster than should have been possible, faster than human, the shift already tearing through him. He reached them just as the blade fell, and he took it in his side. The pain was distant, secondary. He wrapped himself around Mavis and Larkin, his body a shield between them and the blade that had buried itself between his ribs. His mother staggered back, eyes wide. What have you done? She breathed. Vorik's legs buckled. He went down slowly, one hand pressed against the wound, the other still wrapped around the two small bodies he had sworn to protect. Vorik! Mavis's voice was distant. Wrong. Like hearing through water. Run, he managed. Get Sorsha. Get! The door burst open again. Sorsha stood in the entrance, guards at her back, her silver hair wild and her eyes blazing with cold fury. Seize her, Sorsha commanded. The guards moved. The matriarch tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. You cannot do this, she snarled. I am the king's mother, I am… You are a murderer. Sorsha's voice cut like ice. You killed your own son's brother. You have been poisoning your son for decades. You just tried to murder a child under his protection. You have no proof. I have the alchemist's report. Sorsha held up a scroll. Every compound identified, every poison named, every meal traced back to your personal kitchen. She stepped closer. It is over, Lady Sylvain. Everything you built ends today. The matriarch's face twisted with rage. Weakness, she spat. This is what comes of weakness. Mercy. Softness. I made him a conqueror. I made him feared across the known world, and you would throw it all away for a stray Omega and a cursed cub. I would throw it away, Vorik said, his voice ragged with pain. For something real. The matriarch looked at him. Her son. The weapon she had forged. And for the first time there was nothing in her eyes but hatred. You were supposed to be my legacy, she said. Instead, you are my greatest failure. The guards dragged her toward the door. This is not over, she screamed. You will regret this. All of you. When the kingdom crumbles? When your enemies return? When everything I built burns to ash?" The doors slammed shut behind her. Silence fell. Mavis knelt beside Vorik, her hands pressed against his wound, her face streaked with tears. "You came," she whispered. "You heard me, and you came. Always." His voice was fading. "I promised. Stay awake." Sorsha was beside them now, tearing strips from her own gown to press against the bleeding. "The healers are coming. You are not allowed to die." "Bossy," Vorik murmured. "Yes." Sorsha's voice cracked. "Get used to it." His eyes found Mavis, found Larkin, pressed against her side, whimpering softly. "Protect them," he said to Sorsha. You will protect them yourself." Sorsha's hand found his. "You are not leaving. Not now. Not after everything." His eyes drifted closed. Mavis clutched his hand and did not let go. 3 days. Vorik had been unconscious for 3 days, and Sorsha had filled every hour with tasks, because tasks were the only thing standing between her and the fear she refused to name. She met with the council, oversaw the matriarch's confinement, managed the fortress operations with an authority no one questioned, because no one else was capable of questioning anything. And in the quiet moments she found herself standing outside his chambers, listening to the slow rhythm of his breathing, remembering the way he had said her name in the firelight. On the 4th morning, she finally went inside. Mavis was curled in the chair beside his bed, dark circles under her eyes, her hand wrapped around Larkin's small paw. The cub looked up when Sorsha entered, his golden eyes ancient and knowing. "He has not woken," Mavis whispered. "The healers say his body is healing, but he will not wake." Sorsha sat beside her. "He will. You do not know that. I know him." Sorsha looked at the man lying motionless under heavy blankets. "He is too stubborn to die." Mavis almost smiled. Almost. "It was my fault," she said quietly. "I should have been more careful. I should have—" "You should have what?" Sorsha interrupted gently. "Not been a child? Not trusted an adult who pretended to be kind? You did nothing wrong, Mavis. Nothing. She used me to hurt him. She used everyone to hurt everyone." Sorsha put her arm around the girl's thin shoulders. "That is what she did. That is all she knew how to do." Mavis leaned into her. They sat in silence, watching Vorik's chest rise and fall. Then his brow creased, his fingers twitched. His eyes opened slowly, like a man fighting his way back from a long darkness. "Mavis." His voice was rough, broken. "Where—" She was out of the chair before Sorsha could move, throwing herself at his bedside but stopping just short of touching him. "I am here." Tears streamed down her face. "I am here. Larkin is here. We are safe." He looked at her, then at Larkin, who had climbed onto the bed and pressed his golden body against Vorik's arm, then at Sorsha, standing behind them both. "You saved me," he said to Sorsha. "You saved yourself." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I simply cleaned up the mess." That ghost of a smile crossed his face. "My mother?" "Confined. The evidence is overwhelming. She will never hurt anyone again." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. "She told me I was broken," he said quietly. "My entire life. She told me there was something wrong with me, that the violence was my nature, that war was the only way to control it. She lied." Mavis took his hand. "You are not broken. You never were. She poisoned me to make me believe it. And now you know the truth." Sorsha moved closer. "Now you can choose who you want to be." He looked at her, at Mavis, at Larkin. "I want to be someone worth protecting," he said finally. "Someone worth believing in." Mavis squeezed his hand. "You already are." He pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her thin shoulders, pressing his face against the top of her head. "I am sorry," he said, "for Larkin, for your village, for everything my wars destroyed." "You did not burn my village." Mavis's voice was muffled against his chest. She did. Her orders. Her cruelty. I allowed it to happen. You did not know. She pulled back and looked at him with those strange, knowing eyes, one gray and one brown, so young and so impossibly wise. But you know now, and knowing means you can do better. Silence stretched between them, warm and healing. Mavis, Vorik said slowly, I made a promise to myself in that clearing, when you stood between me and Larkin, when you looked at me without fear. What promise? That I would protect you. He cupped her face gently. Both of you, for as long as I live. You already have. No. He shook his head. I mean truly. Permanently. He paused. If you will allow it, I would like to adopt you. Both of you. As my own. Mavis went very still. Your own, she whispered. My daughter. He looked at Larkin. My son. My family. Not because of duty or guilt or obligation, because I love you. His voice cracked. Because you showed me what courage looks like. What loyalty looks like. What family is supposed to be. Mavis burst into tears and threw her arms around his neck. He held her, held Larkin, held on like he would never let go. Sorsha stood watching, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This man who had been her enemy, who had destroyed her kingdom, who had carried a starving Omega through the gates of his fortress and changed everything. She turned toward the door, giving them privacy. Sorsha? His voice stopped her. She looked back. Thank you, he said, for everything. She inclined her head, not trusting her voice, and slipped out into the corridor. But she was smiling. Spring had come to Blackspire Keep. Sorsha stood beneath the archway of the inner courtyard, watching Mavis chase Larkin through the gardens. The girl's dress was already grass-stained, her dark hair escaping its braids, her laughter floating up like birdsong. Princess Mavis, they called her now. Daughter of the king. No longer a starving Omega hiding in hollow trees. Larkin bounded beside her, golden fur gleaming in the sunlight. He had grown in the months since the matriarch's imprisonment. Stronger, happier. A cub who had been marked for death now running through the royal gardens like he owned them. Across the courtyard, Vorik stood with his advisors. The Blood Moon Conqueror, they still called him. Though the name felt wrong now, he had declared unconditional peace with every remaining kingdom. He had opened the fortress to refugees. He had dismantled the war machine his mother had spent decades building. He was becoming someone new, someone Sorsha had not expected. The treaty no longer bound her. She was free to return to Sareth, free to rebuild her father's kingdom, free to leave this fortress and never look back. She should feel nothing but relief. Instead, she felt untethered, lost. Like a ship that had spent so long fighting a storm, it no longer knew what to do with calm waters. You are staring again. Sorsha startled. Mavis had appeared beside her, breathless and smiling. I was watching you play, Sorsha said. You were watching him. Mavis grinned. You always watch him. I do not. Princess Sorsha. Vorik's voice cut across the courtyard. He was walking toward them, his advisors dismissed, his green eyes fixed on her face. I hope to find you here. Sorsha straightened her spine. Your Majesty. I wanted to see you before you left. He stopped in front of her. Close. Too close. Your carriage is being prepared. Yes. Silence stretched between them. I hope you have a safe journey home, he said finally. Thank you. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. I am sure I will. Another pause. You could stay. The words came out rough, almost uncertain. From the man who had conquered 3 kingdoms without hesitation. Sorsha's breath caught. I am sorry, she whispered. You could stay. He stepped closer. Here. With us. With me. Vorik. I know I do not deserve it. He spoke quickly now, like a man afraid he would lose his courage. I know what I have done. What I have taken from you. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am not asking for anything you cannot give. Then what are you asking? His eyes burned into hers. I am asking for a chance to prove that I can be more than what she made me, to build something instead of destroying it. To, he stopped, swallowed, to be worthy of you. Sorsha could not breathe. You are the bravest person I have ever met, he continued. You walked into my fortress as my enemy and never once pretended to be anything else. You challenged me, changed me, made me want to be better. Vorik, I love you. The words fell out of him like confession. I have loved you since you looked at me in that council chamber and told me you were imagining my death. I have loved you every day since, and I will love you every day after, whether you stay or go. Silence rang across the courtyard. Mavis was watching with barely contained glee. Larkin sat beside her, tail wagging. Say something, Vorik said quietly. Please. Sorsha looked at him. This man who had been her enemy, her captor, her reluctant ally, and now something else entirely. You are asking me to stay, she said slowly. Yes. In this fortress I swore to hate. Yes. With a man I spent 3 months imagining dead. Yes. His jaw tightened. Though I hope you might imagine me alive more often going forward. Despite everything, Sorsha laughed. The sound surprised them both. You are impossible, she said. I am trying to be possible. He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and took her hand. Is it working? She looked at their joined hands, at Mavis, beaming from the garden, at Larkin, barking softly with excitement. At the future she had not dared to imagine. Yes, she said softly. I think it might be. His face transformed, hope and joy and something vulnerable breaking through every wall he had ever built. You will stay? I will stay. He kissed her. And behind them, Mavis cheered loud enough to echo off every stone wall in Blackspire Keep. Finally, she announced, now we are a proper family. Sorsha laughed against Vorik's mouth. He laughed too, the sound warm and real and entirely unguarded. The war was over, the real one, and all the smaller ones they had been fighting inside themselves. And something new was beginning. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. These stories only exist because of you. Because you listen, you comment, you share. And that means more to me than you know. I am so grateful you are here.